Welcome to Quick and Early Miracles. Again, this week I'm excited about what we're talking about. I'm calling it the U-turn, and this might be helpful to you if you're in a place where you're feeling overwhelmed with what you think you need to do to feel good again. Hey! Woo. Good morning. And we'll start by saying what a U-turn is not. So a U-turn is looking outside and saying, you need to do something. I can't believe I got my arrow wrong on that one. You need to do something so that I feel better. And you might be an actual individual, or maybe it's like the world, or maybe it's your job, or maybe it's a thing. So morning guys, hey. So in looking at a U-turn, you take your focus off of them and bring it back to yourself, which is the same as turning your power on. So if you're just joining today, I'm talking about some perspectives that might be helpful if you feel underwater or overwhelmed. Hey! And you want to start making change in your life, but like you don't know where to start, or maybe there's something in your life that's like too big to move. So the strategy here is U-turn, where you take your focus off the things that are external and you bring them to you. And that can be really fucking scary at first, because like if it was easy to start there, you might. And I want to introduce the idea of a temple, and this is your house. I also drew it like a pyramid, and I drew the house kind of like screwy because the way we think about everything is the problem. And so if you have an idea of what your housing should look like and it doesn't look like that, you can make yourself all types of miserable. But like, look, these people have an umbrella on the roof, and their door is a circle, and then there's like this strange attachment on the side, and like this works for them. This works for them. So their house doesn't look like the regular house. That works for them. Or you can think about yourself as kind of like this temple, etc. So when you take your focus off the outside world and you bring it home, you might notice that there are some things in disrepair, or you might be overwhelmed about like how to even begin to make use of what's there. Don't worry, I have the first step. It's actually 1 and 1, 2. The first step is your mentality, your mindset, where you don't need to worry about into the future for, 3 months, 5 years, etc. What will this look like? Can I do this, etc. You allow yourself to focus right here, right now, on this moment. When there is a lot of overwhelm, one of the hardest things to do is to start, because like the magnitude of what you would open up or start to change. Let's say that you're not happy in your relationship, or you're not happy in the city that you're living in. To start to think like, oh, all the steps I need to take to make that happen, like, whoa. And you don't. And instead you watch like TV or go out. And so the next week rolls around and you're in the same place, and it's because I call it task dysmorphia. What's ahead of you becomes so big and scary that it's easier to just not start. So step 1 in this remodel and taking ownership of your experience so that you feel better is really just your headspace and your mentality. So the first perspective I'm offering is like, don't worry about like what you're going to do later, or how long it's going to take, or how hard it's going to be. Like, what's the step right now? Oh, look, I got a marker on the floor. I'll drop it in the cup. It's not about all the markers and all the time and space, and what it all means is just like, what's the thing right here? The other thing is being mindful, and you can drop into my other content for this, about the stories that you're telling. Holy fuck. Will a story not bring you down? So the story could be, I shouldn't have to do this. This is wrong. Nobody else is doing this. I suck at this. But you might not hear it like that. What you could hear instead is just like all this stuff you're circling about. Well, what if I would have thought about it that way? Or what would it be like if I would have made that decision? Or can I explain it to them like this? Like all this stuff goes on the inside that makes you miserable and takes your power. So step one is to start to manage your headspace. This doesn't mean you have to make any phone calls. This doesn't mean you go to the gym. This means nothing except you start to be mindful. And step number 1, 2 is breathing. So being with your lungs. It's really easy to get lost in time and space. It's really easy to go into all the possibilities, all these things. But if you're focusing on your lungs, it brings you to the immediacy of your environment, where the only place you can do shit is. How does this work with planning or thinking in time? If you have shit to think about for later, sit down with a pen and think about it for later. Set a timer for 20 minutes and say, like, okay, I'm going to consider what my plan is for the next 5 years, or what I need to do tomorrow, or like, right? Sit down, make your moment about the future rather than have your future like leak into your moment. Like, if you need to consider something from the past, if you want to think about a relationship that's ending, set a fucking timer and sit down with it and say, like, okay, what are my thoughts and my feelings? Or talk to somebody for an hour. And then outside of that, put up like walls where there's no contemplating of that stuff that isn't present. Let's say that's really scary to you. That's okay. Go with that. That means that if it's scary to you to ignore that information, what if you think something while you're washing the dishes you can use? Have a notepad, text it to yourself, like capture that stuff, but rather than have it kick around all the time, allow yourself to focus where you are. So if you're just joining today, I'm talking about the U-turn. And this would be a strategy whenever you're feeling powerless or overwhelmed, where you take your attention off what everybody else is doing, what you doing, and you turn it and bring it back home. And home in this respect is like what you're doing, where you're at, etc. Good morning. And I emphasize, like, this home that I drew out here is unique to its occupants. It doesn't look like the other houses. Isn't that cool? Hey, I'm just going to keep underlining this point, because so much suffering comes from the idea that my stuff should look like their stuff, my timing should be like their timing. No, look, this house does not look like a house you've seen, because you don't live there, nobody else lives there but the people that live there. So when you're turning your attention back to yourself, it's so much easier if you're not looking for the right house, the right way, when you're just doing it your way. Some of the biggest blocks to taking ownership of your life are because, like, you don't want what they have. And so it's like, well, why bother? No, you don't fuck what they have. Like, what do you want? What works for you? And then I was saying, like, all right, so now you're bringing your attention back to yourself, which can be overwhelming, but don't worry, here's your first step, and step number 1 and step number 1, 2, bring your attention to your mind. Like, this from here, all else flows. And to me, and I've talked about this a lot in my presentations, self-love is just remembering that you own your headspace and your moment. And if you want to bring some bullshit in there about what's not working, what the past had, whatever, you can. It's your billboard. Whatever you want to put on it, you can. And it sounds really simple, but it does take some practice. That's why step number 1, 2 is to practice being with your breath. But you can do it. It can be done. And that in itself will vastly improve the quality of your life, because everywhere you go, you take your billboard and your headspace with you. And if you're at a really cool place and what's flashing on your billboard is how you're not good enough, are you going to enjoy it? So does it really matter where you are? No, this is like I said, from where all else flows. The other thing, so let's say you get those things in motion. You'll generally have a better idea of what you need to do next. And so then there aren't these big outstanding questions of like, how do I start? What now? But let's say you still have some questions. Meet the easy peasy rollout. Are my Z's going the right way? Yeah, they are. Look, I've been in behavior change for a minute, and well-being and development of the self. And this makes the greatest difference. Your headspace and your ability to be present makes the greatest difference. From there are other things that help. So when you're looking at lifestyle choices, what you're eating, what you're consuming at an information level, how you're moving, who you're around, like all that shit does matter. And yet, if you focus on that first, you might feel even more overwhelmed or bad about yourself. So fuck this stuff first. You go here first, and then from there, look at what you want to add to your life before you start talking about what to take away. So if somebody is, like I've taken a lot of people through nutrition, revitalization, or revitalize, changing their nutrition and their movement patterns, and or breaking habits, stopping smoking, stopping drinking, doing these things. If you start with what you want to take away, if you start with the negative, it's so much harder. Look at what you need to add to your life that kind of like edges out what you don't want. So if you want to change your nutrition, it doesn't look like stopping eating chips. It looks like looking for a vegetable you like that you can add in a couple days a week. You do that, and then your brain, which leads all things, is like, look at me, I'm on a roll, I'm healthy. And then all the other choices you want to make start to get easier. So start with adding something. If going to the gym is like distasteful for you, or you've been saying you like it but you've been gone for 5 years, fuck it, skip it. Go outside and do yard work. Like whatever is easiest for you to add, start there. And the same thing with like drinking, smoking, toxic relationships, any bad habit you have, good luck fighting it. If you're still fighting it, like, good luck. Sometimes that works. Sometimes you can have an off switch, but if that hasn't been the case for you, then look at what to add. So if you're in a toxic relationship, which is a phrase that's really aggressive and I'm not a huge fan of, but let's say that that's what you think that you're in, professionally or personally, add more nice people to your life. Call up your old friends. Call people you have good relationships with. Call people who you know who can hear you. That changes the information context, and then it's easier to say no to somebody who treats you poorly because you remember what it's like to be treated well. So start with the add. That is my easy peasy rollout strategy. I have, again, been coaching behavior or transforming behavior since at least I started coaching people in 2013, and it's just like narrowed to the cause of all things, which is your head. But these sometimes tactical, tangible strategies can be helpful too. All right. That's all I have for today. Does anybody have any questions about how to apply this to their lives, or any stories they want to share, things they want to say? Thanks for coming. All right, so in summary today, I talked about the Uturn, which is taking your attention off what other people are doing. You're making me miserable. You. I'm not happy. No, so you do the Uturn, and you bring all of that attention back home. And your home, your self space, is gonna look different than everybody else's, which it can be so freeing to really underline. Like, you're not trying to get a life right. You're not trying to get the life right. You're trying to let your life be right. The way you do it is the way you do it. This will make you so much happier than getting what you think you're supposed to get. Like, just get what you like. Like, do it your way. And I said to start, pulling all that attention home. At first, it can be really overwhelming because you might see a lot of stuff that you don't know what to do with. That's okay. You don't need to worry about all that. You're just taking it with step number 1, focusing your headspace on this moment and allowing yourself to be kinder to what, just watching what you're saying to you and how the environment that you're creating inside. And then step number 1, too, is to be with your breath. I put them, instead of like number 2, I put it number 1, 2, because sometimes your head is like so fucking fast and overwhelmed, you can't really do anything with it, which just means like, then start here. So either of these, these seem to be equally important in turning those things around. And then once you get a little bit more comfortable in your moment and your body, there's no rush here. You can do an easy peasy rollout where you let yourself start with what is easiest. Oh God. I could jump up and down and yell this. Like, if you're having a hard time doing something, don't let it be. Let it be. Like, if you're having a hard time turning around your finances or your productivity habits or how you're communicating, let it on the shelf. Get it when you're good. Like, start with what's easiest for you, and I promise you, momentum will build. And I suggested adding things before you start taking them away. Edge out what you don't want by focusing on what you could add. If you notice that you're kind of like cut off and spending a lot of time by yourself and you're a loner, and that feels like hard to turn around, start so small. This little plus sign could be so small. It could be that when you're at the grocery store and you're checking out, you take an extra second and you look at the cashier. Plus, added it to the life, hey, look, I'm connecting. Like, it doesn't have to be something like magnificent. All things are magnificent. It doesn't really matter what it is. And allow yourself to start to collect these pluses. I can't stop eating a block of chocolate every day. Okay, that's a great one. And what my professional recommendation to you would be to fucking enjoy it. So, like, don't feel guilty. Don't talk about how you're gonna stop. Don't think you need to stop. When you're having your chocolate bar, like, really sit down, make it nice, get out candles, like, wherever you are, really relish it, take your time, fill out your body, be there for it, make it great. Maybe even look for different chocolate bars. And when you stop pushing against certain habits, certain things, they become phases. And you really don't want to do it anymore because that like friction isn't there to hide that you're kind of over it. And so really like just step into it and own it. Thank you for adding that. Thank you for coming. Great to see so many names this morning. If this series has been helpful to you or there are topics that you like please let me know. It's super like encouraging to me that this is going somewhere for somebody. My goal is that this was what I felt I had to do, so my goal was to do that. But, you know, at a conscious level, it seems like I would really love, it would feel so good to me, it'd be so cool if, like, people walked away from these or stood up from these or whatever they're doing away from these, like, with greater acceptance and love for themselves. Like, that's my OBJ. That means objective. Okay, thank you so much. Oh, and I do work with people one-on-one, so let's say that you're having a hard time implementing or coming up with ideas in a certain area. Yeah, of course you would. Like, if it's an area that's been tangly for you and you don't really know where to start, it can be so helpful to have someone on the outside, like, just lay out a path. And as you can probably imagine from what you've seen me do here, I'm super approachable and reasonable. And, like, I wanted, going back to, like, let your house be different, I've got this inclination to be creative and make stuff kind of unusual. And this is how I teach people, using, like, pictures and cute phrases and stuff. And then at one point I had the idea, or some business coach told me that I needed to be more professional or serious. And so I was like, okay, you're right. That sucked for me. It took out all my like natural enthusiasm. So some people are gonna buy into this as an idea and other people aren't, and that's okay. There's a lot of people, and the more fun I have, the more easy it is for my people to find me. So this is the level that I work with people on. It's like I said, playful, imaginative, and strangely effective. Thanks so much for coming. Thank you.